guys, hope you're all doing well. My name is Emma and it is already time for some more monthly updates. So I'm going to take you through everything that I've been working on in my knit world in the last few weeks. Alright, first up I've got a couple finished pieces, which kind of surprises me that I have some finished pieces considering how many finished pieces I had like last episode. But then when I show you these finished pieces, it's like no surprise that these are like finished pieces. Anyways, first up I have a little hat that I whipped up. So this is just a cable beanie. It's the second time I've made this pattern. I made one in beige ages ago, and so now I just have one that's like in black. But this is the classic cable beanie by Bee Hooked Crochet. The pattern calls for any medium weight yarn and to knit it on 3.5 and 5.5 millimeter needles. It's a very simple construction. Just cast on, establish 2x2 ribbing, and you knit that until you're happy with the length. You then switch onto your larger needles, establish your cables, you do a couple rounds of cables, and then you start working some decreases in to shape the crown of the hat, and then we just attach a pom-pom at the end. For my piece, I did end up using some reclaimed yarn that I pulled out from my Mellow Mood sweater. So it is the wool yarn that I got from Temu. It's meant to be 80% 80% wool, 20% polyester, and in the color black. I also switched out the needle sizes for this one. So I did the brim section in 4mm and then the cable section in 5mm needles. The size I ended up making for mine was a adult large size, so that is technically the biggest size beanie from the pattern. And then I did do some changes to the cast on in the brim compared to what I did last time. So same folded brim as I did on this one because I really like the folded brim, but I did change the cast on edge. So for this one, I did Judy's Magic cast on. You probably can't see that there because it is black, but it creates just a really nice inner seam. Whereas this one, you can see I just did a standard cast on and then I had to like pick up the stitches. So yeah, I don't know if you can really see any difference there. It's on the inside of the hat, so it doesn't even matter, but I just like the look of Judy's Magic cast on. It just looks a little bit more like polished, even though it's on the inside. And it's also a little bit easier because you've already got a set of stitches and you're just knitting two together versus having to like pick up the stitch in the right place, which I think is what I didn't quite do right in this one. And there's a few like little puckery bits on the right side from where like I might have picked up the stitch slightly incorrectly, whereas this one's just like more polished. It's nice. Anyways, I ended up knitting this over the course of 18 days. It took me a total of 14 hours to whip up the beanie. And the cost for this, I used around about, I think, equivalent of 1.5 balls or just over 1.5 balls. I basically just weighed the knitted hat once I was done. I'm pretty sure it's 165 grams. So the cost was $7.62, including like the pom-pom and everything on there. Now, thoughts on the pattern. So the pattern's recently been updated for this particular beanie. So I think the original one only had like one needle size that you used across the entire beanie. The new pattern, they've adjusted it so that the ribbing's done on a smaller needle and then the cables are done on a larger needle. Because of those edits to the needles, the stitch counts have all changed, and that's what kind of threw a spanner in the works for me because I was like, ooh, do I follow the pattern or not follow the pattern? Because this black yarn and this beige yarn are meant to be the same yarns. Like I purchased them at the same time, same listing, everything. They're just different colors. And the new pattern does call for 3.5mm needles. Now there's no way I was going to knit thick yarn on 3.5mm needles. So I knew I was going to do 4mm for the ribbing. I did this one on 4mm as well. So you know, I decided to not follow the pattern and cast on the same number of stitches that I had on the beige beanie. However, once I had done like I was doing my first round of kind of ribbing, it just looked huge. Like, I don't know what it is about this black yarn, but I think it's like, there's something different about it compared to like this beige yarn. I feel like this beige one's maybe a little bit thinner, this one's a little bit thicker. I don't know if it's because this one's been used and washed or what, but anyways, this black yarn seems to be like a little bit thicker or something. But when I was doing my doing my first round of the ribbing, I decided that I was going to drop off the extra stitches and follow the stitch count according to the pattern, and just make it to the size large. And that's actually turned out to be basically perfect. Like, I feel like the fit of both of these beanies is exactly the same, yet this one was originally a teen size, so like a middle size, and this one's like the largest size, so that's interesting. But they feel like the same on the head, so that was a little bit of spinning the works. Apart from the sizing changes, the needle changes, like the pattern's the same otherwise. Instructions are very easy to follow, and there's a full video tutorial showing you all like the cable details and everything like that as well. So it's a very beginner friendly pattern. Now, my thoughts on knitting this piece, I'm not going to lie, the ribbing was super tedious to do. Again, it's just a thick yarn on slightly too smaller needles. It's just very laborious to do ribbing. The actual ribbing didn't take necessarily that long, but it felt like it took ages because I could only work on the ribbing for very short bursts. So I would only ever do a couple rows of ribbing, and then my hands or my arms would get sore and I have to put it down. So I feel like the ribbing took me ages, but as soon as we switched over to the larger needles for the cables, I flew through this. I literally did the whole cable section in a day and a half and I was done. And then the rest of the time I spent on the ribbing. But yeah, other than that, I really like this particular beanie. I mean, I already have one, so now I've got a second one. I love the cable details. I think it's just such a cute, classic, cabled hat, and it's such an easy pattern, and it's free. And you can add whatever pom-pom you want to the top. But I really like this combo with the grey as well. I would say my only dislikes on this one is the decreases. This is going to be hard to show you because they are black, but you do slip knits. And I mentioned this on my first version of the beanie as well. I just didn't really like the decreases being slip knits because they look kind of obvious. I do my slip knits as a you slip a stitch, knit a stitch, and then you pass the slip stitch over the knitted one. I do that type of decrease because I feel like it looks a little bit neater than if I just knit the two together type of thing. And yeah, I don't know, comparing the two, they could be a little bit neater, but it could also just because it's black that you can't see the decreases as well. But I still think they're a bit obvious, so I don't like that element of it, but you have to do that leaning decrease for it to work. So yeah, that is what it is. So yeah, that's my second version of the cable beanie done. All right, next finished piece I'm super proud to have finished, and it is my zipper sweater. So this is the gift knit that I've been working on. I kind of put it down for a month and then I finished it off now, obviously. So it is ready to, actually I need to block it and then it's ready to be sent off. But this is the Zipper Sweater Light by Petite Knit. So it is the DK weight version of the zipper sweater and is called to be knit on 4mm needles. The construction of this is actually relatively straightforward. It is knit top down. You've got the raglan shaping for the shoulder, and it's just an all over stockinette stitch. The yoke section up here is mostly knit flat to create the kind of gap for the zipper. Once you get past the zipper, everything else is worked down in the round. So you start by casting on. So this is where you use that Judy's Magic cast on again. This is where I learned it from, was this particular piece. You zip it all the way up so you can see the ribbing. But yeah, so basically you cast on for your collar. You knit twice the length as you see here in terms of the collar, then you fold it and you seam the two ends together. You then start to work through your yoke section. So you start with some short rows for shaping the back whilst establishing your raglan increases. Like I said, you continue to work down flat until you reach the right depth for your zipper. So this depth is customizable based on whatever zipper you do end up buying. Once you reach the right length for your zipper, you join in the round. You need to continue to work your yoke for a little bit more length until you separate for body and sleeves. Once you do that, you're basically just continuing to work down the straight and stockinette, finish with some 1x1 ribbing on the bottom, and finish with a tubular Italian bind off. and then you do the same for the sleeves. So you would just pick up your stitches that were placed on hold, work your sleeves down. There are some very gradual decreases that you do work down the center of the sleeve to give it a bit of a taper, and then you do your 1x1 ribbing again and your same tubular bind off on the cuff. Lastly, you then work your zipper. So you actually knit a little bit of a facing that sits on the inside of the piece. I can show you now. So you can see there's a little bit of a facing there to keep the edge looking really nice if you have it open. So you work that, you seam that bit down, and then you sew your zipper in between the outer side and that little facing bit on the inside, and then you're done. So for this one, I did use the Temu cashmere yarn. It's supposedly 100% cashmere, and it was in the color number 37 coffee. So I had that double along with it came with some supporting cotton, so I held that with it throughout. I would say that that combo was probably a very light DK, if not like a sport weight combined together. The yarn was pretty thin, and because I wasn't quite on gauge, I did size up my needle, so I went up half a size for every needle that I used. So we ended up using 4mm for our ribbing and 4.5s for our body. Now, in terms of size that I ended up making this one too, so initially, I cast it on for medium, and I did intend to make a medium because my gauge swatch was basically on point. But as I was knitting it, I remeasured my work, and I realized that actually my gauge is way off. So I basically kind of winged it, and I continued to do increases on my yoke section. So the body section's now to the size large, but the arms came out as an extra large. So we've got medium, large, extra large on the sleeves. So it's all over the show there. I also made some changes to the sleeve decreases. I did them fewer than what the pattern called for, less frequent. I did realize halfway through doing them that I wasn't going to have enough sleeve length to really get many decreases in, so I started doing them more frequent towards the bottom of there. I don't know if that's going to really show up if you can see the rate change. It's not that obvious, but anyways, I did that. And then because my sleeve was a little bit wider than expected, I still did some decreases before doing my ribbing, but I ended up sizing down one more needle size for my ribbing just to really cinch it in on the cuff instead of having it it looked a little bit too baggy on the 4mm. So I did 3.5s for my ribbing there. Now, all up, in terms of time to make this one, I knit it over the course of 13 weeks. I did end up, like I say, I put it down for a month because I realized, I don't know why, I thought Mother's Day was in March, but it's in May. So I had more time up my sleeve to finish the piece, so I kind of put it down for a bit while I worked on other things. So yeah, 13 weeks, and I spent 111 hours working on this piece. What else? In terms of cost, so this all up came to, including the pattern, zipper, and the yarn used, we're looking around about $56.91. So not bad. I'm actually pretty happy with that for supposedly cashmere. Now, thoughts on the pattern for this one. It is very easy to follow. It's well written. There's checkpoints and stitch counts and things like that within it. So I would say it's an easy pattern to understand. Some of the techniques, when you do your collar and you have to seam it together, don't necessarily make sense immediately upon reading, but then once you've seen it done and then you read the instructions make perfect sense. So I think that's just one of those, you need to sometimes see something to understand what's meant to be done. I will also say the video links in the pattern, they don't actually link you to a specific video. They take you to the Petite Knit page, and then you have to go find the video that you need for the specific technique that you're trying to do. Now, at first I was looking, there's a tab that says videos, and that has some basic knit videos, increases and stuff like that. I could never find the specific video that I needed, and I was really confused because I was why are you referencing videos? You don't even have them. But When I was doing the zipper, I actually just like Googled the full name. I was like petite knit zipper sweater, zipper installation, whatever. And the correct, like the actual video came up. And that's when I realized that the videos are saved on the pattern page, not the like video tab. So if you are knitting any petite knit patterns, the video tutorials are on the patterns page where you read the description by the pattern and stuff like that. That's where the video links are. So top tip if you're making that particular pattern. So the pattern has like a high difficulty rating on the pattern page. I think it was like 4 or 5 stars in terms of difficulty. But I think from a viewer perspective, I'm just remembering this off the top of my head, so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure most people said that it was like 50-50 or like slightly more on the easier side. But the zipper installation is definitely like where the technical difficulties come from. I wouldn't even say that is actually hard to install. It is a little bit fiddly and time consuming, but if you have some like pins and you just pin your zipper in place, it's like really easy to then just stitch down the sides and stuff like that. It just takes a little bit of time, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's difficult, it's just time consuming and a tiny bit fiddly. So all in all, I really enjoyed working on this piece actually. I think it's a combination of, it's a relatively simple pattern, like in stock net stitch, so it's not like you have to really concentrate too hard on working it. And also this yarn that I've used was actually really nice to work with. Even though I was holding technically 3 strands together, I didn't have any issues with it kind of like separating or dropping one of the strands or anything like that. They seem to like kind of stick together, which made it really easy to work the piece. And then because it is stockinette, you kind of just mindlessly go through it and end up getting some big chunks done, particularly once you get down to like working in the round. Even the sleeves, I didn't find that bad on this one as well, partially because they probably are a little bit shorter than I would normally knit them to, so I didn't have to do as much of the sleeves. But they were still even fine working like either just with long cables or using magic loop. Like I actually used magic loop for quite a lot of this and I didn't have any issues with like rowing out or anything. Like it's come out really nice. And for likes and dislikes, I like basically everything about this sweater. The actual style of this sweater is great. I think this is probably one of the most like commercial looking knits that you're going to get out of there, and it's very unisex as well. So you could totally make this pattern work for like a man in your life, you could make it for a woman, like it will work either way. You could just adjust the sizing, and then like particularly if you've already made one piece, you'll be able to mod this so easy for sizing like in future, because it's not hard. It's really not that hard. It is just a basic raglan at the end of the day with a zipper in the middle. Like it's not too much to it, but the design is just, it's so classic. Like a quarter zip jumper just fits into like anyone's wardrobes. You can wear it like workout gears or like to brunch, like dress it up a little bit. Like it's such a classic piece. So I love that. The only thing I dislike about this particular one is the way that I did the raglans. And I mean, this is a gift, so it doesn't bother me too much because I'm not going to have to look at it. But I did, because I was like toying around with the sizes and all that jazz, I ended up knitting or stopping my raglans, and then I decided I wanted some more length on the yoke section. So I continued to knit flat for a little bit, and it created that kind of like harsh stop in the raglan. So the raglan doesn't like meet the armpit. So to avoid that, you can just like space out those raglans towards the end and like add in 2 knit rows in between and just like stretch out that raglan line a little bit. That would have been the better approach to doing this. So I didn't just have that kind of harsh stop. I don't think it's that obvious when you're wearing it because it does kind of tuck into the underarm a little bit. But it annoys me that it's such an obvious like stop of the increases and that raglan line. So I don't love that. That's definitely something that I have already adapted in other patterns to avoid that happening again. So yeah, that takes me, I guess, into my changes that I'm going to make for next time. I think the main change I would do for this one is sizing. So now that I know what my gauge is going to be, like more accurately, I can accurately pick a size. And I think the other thing I would do is just follow the recommended kind of a decrease, what would you call that? Decrease frequency on the sleeve, because I typically like my sleeves to be a bit baggier than what the pattern calls for, but then at the same time, sometimes it's too baggy at the cuff, so you do need to work in decreases, but this cuff ribbing is quite long, so you could definitely probably do a few more like frequent ones for the decreases. So I'll probably follow the pattern guidance for that next time. And talking about next time, that takes me into our width. So first what I'm going to show you is my other zipper sweater. So this is just basically the collar ribbing that you work for the collar. So you've got to knit round and fold it over. So I'm probably just past halfway, well, maybe like 2/3 of the way done before we're going to fold it. But yeah, I'm making mine in exactly the same yarn and everything. So it's going to look identical basically to this when I'm finished. One of the key differences between the skiff knit and my version of the zipper sweater is going to be sizing. So this one was medium, large, extra large. So I'm doing, now that I know what my gauge and everything is, I'm going to knit mine to a extra large. So the gift knit one, when I'm wearing it, has about 15 centimeters of positive ease on me, and I think that looks really good, to be honest. But this particular design allows it to go oversized. Like, I think it would look great oversized. It looks great a little bit more fitted. So whatever ease preference you have on your zipper sweater, you can totally achieve it. But the extra large should give me around about 23 centimeters of positive ease, so a little bit looser, but it's not like crazy. The other change that I'm doing is with the collar sizing. So I'm actually going to size up to the very largest size for the collar, because for this one, even though this is a medium, so smaller than the size that I would be doing, they don't vary that much in terms of stitch count between sizes, and this one fits really snug against my neck. So if this was to be the one that I kept, I would never wear it zipped up. I would always have it like unzipped a little bit. So I want to be able to zip up my collar and have it like a little bit loose from like the neck, if that makes sense. So for my one, this size is the absolute largest stitch count in terms of the collars offered. So I'm basically going to knit this to the biggest size. I'll establish all the raglans, what are they called, stitch markers, according to the size, and then I will knit down, because there's only 8 stitches more on this collar versus the collar for the extra large. So that's just one less raglan increase round that I will do on my jumper to get to the right stitch count. Hopefully that made sense. Did that make sense? I don't know. Anyways, I'll talk about that more when I get to it. But yeah, that's all I've done on that. So far I've worked on that for 8 hours, and yeah, everything else is the same. Same yarn, same needles and everything as the gift knit project. Next whip is the one that has been getting majority of my attention in the last few days that I've been working on. So this is the Arctic Light Sweater by Kuto Vakika. It says DK plus lace equals DK. So DK weight, I don't know. And it's knit on 5mm needles. So this is, I've just got the collar kind of section done here, but this is a relatively straightforward construction. It is knit top down. It's got a raglan shoulder, and it's knit in all over like textured kind of cable pattern, and the piece is entirely worked in the round. So you would start by casting on for your collar. So you're working a half twisted rib for the collar section. You knit that till it's long enough because it's folded over. You then establish your yoke section. So you work all your little patterns, charts that you got established there, and work raglan increases, and you basically continue that down until you reach the underarm section, separate body and sleeves. You continue to work down in all the charted patterns, and you finish both the sleeves and the body section again in that same 1x1 half twisted rib pattern as well. There are some gradual sleeve decreases to taper your sleeve, and then at the end you would just fold your collar and seam it on the inside there. Now for my piece, so I initially brought some kind of green yarn to do this in. I think I've got a photo of the swatch that I can pop up here. So I wanted to get this like kind of sagey, grayish green kind of tone. But there's a whole like story time around like buying the yarn. I was going to buy some from Drops, but then my order was at maximum weight, so I opted to buy a yarn from Bendigo Woolen Mills because it looked like identical colours online to like the Drops one. And I wanted to try the Bendigo yarn, so it was like best of both worlds, but the yarn was a lot more like green than I anticipated it to be, so I didn't really love it. Now I had brought this Drops Kid Silk to go with it in the colour light beige. The reason I brought green and beige is because I saw someone else's project with that colour combo and theirs looked really good, so I wanted to copy it. But since I had the beige yarn, I was like, I'm going to buy the same colour Drops yarn in like one of their DK versions of yarn. But I did a trip out to Bendigo Woolen Mills and I ended up picking up some more yarn from them. So I've made mine using, this is their Whisper 8 ply, which is their merino yarn. I'm pretty sure it's still superwash, but I'm not 100% sure on that because it doesn't specify anywhere around washing, but I'm pretty sure it's superwash. This one's in the colour 2512 Champagne, and like I said, I got it with the Drops Kid Silk yarn, so this is 75% mohair, 25% in the colour number 20 light beige. Now in order to get gauge, I have sized up in my needles by 0.5 millimeter, so the body section of mine is being knit in 5.5 millimeter needles, and I plan to make this to a size large, which should give me around about that 20 centimeters of positive ease on it as well. So I've already done some mods on my piece. Most of the mods I'm doing are in the yoke section. So first of all, we have yet again used Judy's Magic Cast On for the folded collar, because why wouldn't I love it. So you see that nice clean seam on the inside. The second obvious mod that I've done is trying to add some short rows into my piece. Now the pattern doesn't have any shaping in it, but there's been so many people who have done this particular piece as a project that other people have attempted to do short rows and have left detail notes in order to do it yourself. So I'm just following someone's project notes in order to do the shaping. However, I have followed them incorrectly, which means I've done this whole section incorrectly. So I'm probably going to rub it back and redo it. So the mistake that I made with my short rows is because the instructions I'm following are for wrap and turns, and I was doing German short rows. And I think one of the biggest differences between them is the stitch that is being like worked as like a double stitch. So the instructions said to basically knit up until the point of your last short row, so you resolve that double stitch, knit one, then do a wrap and turn. So you'd be working the next stitch over with the wrap and turn. Whereas when you do German short rows, the last stitch you work is the one that you then turn into a double stitch. So I should have technically knit 2 stitches and work the second stitch, because then that would have been the same stitch as like worked in the wrap and turn. Hopefully that makes sense. So basically all of my short rows are like one after the other. It's like almost stacked on top of each other, and that's what's given that really kind of sharp kind of shaped edge there, that sharp curve, whereas they should be spaced out by one more stitch in between all of them, and there's enough fabric to do that. So it's definitely my error there. I don't know what effect this is going to have on the finished piece if I was to leave it as is, how that would make the front sit. It's a bit hard to tell because I don't have enough like fabric here, but like it does definitely bring it down still. I think it's just going to have like quite a steep like curve in the neckline. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but then I also don't know how this is going to like fit on the body, because it looks kind of almost square-like. So I just don't feel like it's going to actually sit that naturally like on the body. It just looks a bit weird. So I'm going to rip this back and redo it just to space out those short rows, and hopefully it looks a little bit better when I do it the second time. But like, man, I'm a little bit annoyed at myself for doing that, because this is, how many hours have I spent on this? 21 hours worth of work so far. And these short rows, like working the cable section backwards requires like 98% of your brain capacity. It is kind of tough. You really have to concentrate what you're doing, what stitch you're on, because on the wrong side it's harder to read your work than on the right side, and there's just a lot going on in this like little bit. And when you don't have much fabric at the start, it's even harder because you don't have, like, you can't even see the established pattern yet. So yeah, I'm pissed that I'm going to have to rip that back, but I would rather rip it back early on and be unhappy with the fit. And that's like, I wouldn't rip back a whole jumper to adjust that, particularly being like how detailed the sweater is. So yeah, I'm just going to take the hit early on and correct my short row shaping and make it look a little bit neater. So I'm going to do that. The other modification I'm going to change to mine is increase the or spread out the raglan increases. So a few people have been complaining about like an armpit wedge, and I have a feeling it might be because the increases are done quite rapidly. So you do increases on every single row, and you continue down to a certain point, and then you just continue to knit the yoke without any increases. So same as like my zipper sweater here. So you're basically amplifying what I've done here. So you do all your increases, and then you just stop and you continue to knit without any increases. Now you'll still see a raglan line on this one because it's got an actual chart for the raglan. So that chart will continue and make it appear like there's still a raglan line there. But basically what I'm going to do is I've started my increases doing every round, and at a certain row I will start spacing them out every other row, and then there will just be a smaller bit that's knit without any increases towards the very, very end. So hopefully that makes it look a little bit, or that fabric that kind of bunches here. My thought is that it should not bunch if I space out those raglans a little bit more. So we'll see in the end if that actually works or not. But that's what I plan to do in terms of mods. So that's all I've done on mine so far. I finished short row shaping. I'm going to rip back and redo. In terms of thoughts on the pattern so far, it's okay. It's a combination of written pattern and charts. It's mostly just the charts, to be honest. The written sections are really just for like your collar and your finishing details, and then like a stitch count for when you need to like separate and things like that. Otherwise you're just following the charts on the pattern. I have noticed a few areas throughout both the written section and the charts where there's like a purl stitch where a knit stitch should be, or something like that. They are minor enough like typos that you can see it and know that it's an error, and you know what's meant to be in its place. Like, it's not like it's going to massively lead you astray or anything like that. The mistake that I've seen in the written instructions is more just around like bracket placements around the sizes. You know, like every other size has like a bracket on it to make it easy to follow, and every now and then there's like the brackets are in the wrong place. I'm like, does that mean the stitch counts are also incorrect, or are they correct? Like, I don't know. So yeah, a couple typos, which is disappointing considering how many people have made this pattern. I'm sure this feedback's been passed on, and the fact that the pattern hasn't been corrected for these really basic typos in a new version release is kind of disappointing. Like, I feel like that's quite lazy. I also know there's the other sweater of hers, which is the Salty Days, and I do have plans to make this, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit hesitant. But I know there's like confusing instructions on that one as well, and again, she hasn't even updated the pattern, but she put some notes on Ravelry about it, and it's just like, just fucking update the pattern. Like, do the right thing. People have paid for a pattern. It should be like good to go. I mean, you don't go to a cafe and buy a coffee for it to be like half filled up every single time. Like, you know, that's kind of the view that I have when the pattern isn't quite like perfect and it's half done. Speaking about like patterns I'm not happy about. All right, so here's my next whip. I'll touch on the pattern in just a second, but this is the start of my Colette pullover. So this one is a pattern by Sari Nordlund. It's calls for light fingering plus weight, or you can knit it in just a single strand of DK, which is what I've done for mine. And it's meant to be knit on 3.5mm needles. So this is knit top down, as you can kind of tell. We do have a drop shoulder in this particular piece, and it's knit all over in this kind of like cable and eyelet detail. Because it is a drop shoulder construction, this yoke section is knit flat, and then everything else, like once you connect the body, it's knit in the round, and the sleeves are knit in the round as well. And so for this one, you start by casting on for the back. Sorry, I've still got this attached to the needles, and they're making so much noise. So you knit this kind of like back section with like increases down the side. You then just continue to knit down until you reach the right length for your particular piece. You then pick up along that kind of back shoulder seam there, and you do, knit the shoulder panels. So you knit them separately, and you kind of do some increases around the neckline to create the shaping for the front. Connect your two front shoulder panels together to create a front piece, and then again you just knit that down till you match the same row as you are for the back. At that point, you then join your piece together in the round, continue to knit your body down until you reach your desired length and finish off in a 1x1 rib. You then pick up your sleeves, you can knit those in the round. There are some tapered decreases down the sleeve, and then you finish that in the 1x1 rib as well. And then you pick up your stitches for like your collar and knit that in last again in a 1x1 rib. So for my piece, I am using Drops Merino Extra Fine, so it is their superwash merino yarn, and this is in the color 06. Now, one of the websites I was looking at this particular colorway on, it said it was 06 brown, another one said it was 06 taupe. So I don't know the actual color name for it, but it is number 06 in the merino. I would say it's more of like just a grey. Hopefully this is picking up all right. That light I cannot seem to fix. I'm also knitting mine on 4.5mm needles, and in terms of size, I've kind of customed my size. I'll touch on that in a second, but this is like a 4.5 in terms of size, and the only modification that I am making so far is just in terms of sizing to get that right. So I've worked on this. This is actually the second yoke that I've made. I have another basically full yoke here. Which way do you go? That I also made up as well. So all up, I've worked on this particular piece for 61 hours, and I've knit 2 yokes so far, one a little bit further than the other. So this pattern. Now, there is absolutely no way anyone is hitting gauge on this particular pattern. So the pattern, the sample is knit using a fingering and a mohair on 3.5s. But all the project, if you read through the project notes, like even people are using the exact same recommended yarn, like they aren't getting gauge. Like no one is getting gauge on this particular piece without sizing up in their needles. Like it seems insane. And it does say that you can use a single strand of DK, like it specifically says it in the pattern, but knitting, trying to get the gauge using a DK on 3.5s, like that math ain't mathing. Like there's no way. So that's really annoying because the gauge is so far, like it's so unreachable. Like I've sized up in my needles twice and I'm still not on gauge. So that makes it really difficult to pick a size and to know what you need to make, because again, the swatch has to be in the pattern. And so if you don't already own the pattern, then you can't gauge swatch, and then you don't know how much yarn to buy. So the whole thing just annoys me. But anyways, because I was off gauge, I was like, that's fine, I'll just knit a larger size. So I would have probably picked either size 2 or 3, depending on how much ease we wanted to go for. So I was looking at making sizes either 4 or 5, but I wasn't quite sure which size to pick, because sizes 4 and 5 have a really significant jump between them in terms of measurements. So basically all of the sizes will increase by like one of these cable columns, but sizes 4 and 5 increase by 2 columns. And I'm just talking about like the flat kind of measurement that we're looking at here. And I don't understand why there's the jump between sizes 4 and 5. So I was like, I don't know, size 4 would give me around about 15 centimeters of positive ease, and then size 5 would give me like closer to 30. And the pattern does call for 20 to 30 centimeters of ease. So like one was a little bit like not enough, and the other one was leaning like a little bit too much positive ease. Because again, if you look at the sample photo, you look at other people's project photos, like no one has a jumper that is like got significant amount of ease, like 30 centimeters of ease. Like no one's got a super baggy version of this particular piece. So I don't know if it's a one that will look good being super oversized, because everyone looks like they've got, you know, around that 10 to 20 centimeters of positive ease on their project photos. So I really wanted something around 20 centimeters, but like nothing was like suiting that. So what I ended up doing is this first one that I knit here, I ended up knitting to a size 4. So both 4 and 5 followed the same chart. So at least it was easy enough for me just to stop and block at size 4 and do a bit of a size sense check. But it was challenging because you just had that like back triangle kind of piece to work with. So it was a bit hard to tell, but I laid it flat against another piece. It was basically the same size as the zipper sweater that I just showed you. So I was like, that will do, like that fits all right. But then as I continued to work down the front bit, I tried it on again, and I was like, I don't know, it's just not looking like drop shoulder enough, like shoulders not looking wide enough. The piece in the body was probably wide enough, but then I don't know, I wasn't really super happy with the fit. I was like, it's probably going to be a little bit on the too small side, and I'm probably not going to be happy with the end piece. So I did some looking over the pattern, because I was like, maybe I will just extend the neckline here and add in an extra column so that I just have a size in between 4 and 5 basically. But I looked at the charts, and if you just follow the other charts, because there's two sets of charts, so certain sizes follow one, certain sizes follow the other. If I just followed the other chart, it totally worked out fine. I could totally get a size 4.5 out of that chart without having to adjust any of the cast on stitches or anything like that. I did just need to rework out like my stitch count for like the body and the shoulder seams, just to make sure that all worked out, but it does. Like I just followed the same charts, the same like pickups and everything. I didn't have to do anything super special apart from rewrite out the new stitch counts for a size 4.5. And I don't understand why the 4.5 isn't included in the pattern, or like there's not like a size in between, when it's already there in the pattern, if that makes sense. Like you just have to add the stitch counts. That's all you need to do, and it's there. So it's really a 10 size pattern, not a 9 size pattern. So yeah, anyways, that pisses me off. So I started again. I need to unravel this and wash all the yarn. So yeah, I basically just started again, did my custom 4.5 size. I'm basically at the point now where I blocked it, and I'm probably going to join in the round. I just need to remeasure the sleeve again and make sure that it's the right like depth in this sleeve that I want. And then I'm going to join it together and start working it around in the round. So that's where I'm up to. I am worried I'm going to run out of yarn for this particular piece, because I am making a size much larger than what I initially anticipated that I was going to make. And also I have read quite a few comments around the yardage estimate being like underestimated. And apparently that's common with Sari Nordlund patterns, because she doesn't require test knitters to actually finish the piece. So the correct yardage isn't like tested, I guess. So that concerns me as well. So it makes me really concerned that I'm not going to have enough of this drops yarn. I did buy more than what the pattern initially called for, because I was suspicious over it anyways. And so I brought like a similar quantity to other like DK weight jumpers sweater quantities. So I'm hoping I end up having enough yarn, but if I don't, I'm going to have to place another order, which is not ideal. So other than the like kind of gauge and sizing issues that I'm having with this particular pattern, I will say the pattern itself is otherwise very like well written. It's a combination of like written instructions and charts. The written is like easy to follow or makes sense. Kind of guides you on like the first 2 rows of the chart. So it's kind of like, you know, do your edge stitch in the first row of the chart, then it tells you on the wrong side the correct edge stitch that you should be knitting there. So it's spelled out nice enough for you, but it's not too wordy or anything like that. My only other critique of the pattern would be that the back charts here for this like increase section are teensy tiny. So that like it's a large chart overall, which means it's condensed to fit on like one A4 page. And because it's like shrunk down, all of the numbers for like the rows are like so tiny that you can't really read them. And when I zoom in on the PDF, like it just gets blurry. So it's like I can't even zoom in on the row number to see what it is. It's like a real pain in the fucking ass. So I don't know whose fault that is, if it's Adobe's fault or if it's the designer could make that font maybe a little bit larger would be useful. But that's the only real difficulty that I've had with the pattern so far. Gauge sizing, and then the chart numbers being so freaking small that you can't see what row you're actually on. So yeah, that's my Colette pullover for this month. Anyways, that's all of my updates for this month, guys. I hope you enjoy. There's plenty of new projects on the needles, so we'll see how they go. I don't think I'm going to have any new finished objects for a little while, to be honest. Like, I've got 3 sweaters on the go and they're all in their yoke sections, so you know, they're going to take a little while to get through, to be honest. And I really don't want to get into a stage where I'm doing like 3 jumpers that are all stuck on sleeves as well. Like, that's my like biggest fear of doing these like projects, like starting them all at the same time, is that they're all going to reach major milestones at the same time. And I'm like, God, how bad would it be to have 3 projects where you just have to finish the sleeves? Like, I can't think of anything worse. Anyways, we'll see what happens. I might end up casting on a new project because, again, these are all using like DK weights and they're basically like same needles. I mean, the Colette and my zipper sweater are going to be the same needles soon, so we've got an issue there as well. So yeah, we'll see what we end up working on in the next month. But if you enjoy these type of videos, you want to continue to see the updates of these guys. I also have project vlogs, so once I finish each project, you'll get a project vlog about them too. So if you like all those type of videos, do those YouTube things. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next month with more updates. Bye, guys. Oh, the lighting's getting really bad. Oh, that light is reflecting. Let me shut the blinds. It's a little bit better. Okay. I'm running out of light, so I've got to be quick. Is because of the sizing. Can I hold that up there and block the sunlight? That would be fucking great. All right, next up is the one that's been, got fluffs. They totally made sense once I knew, like, I don't know, does that make sense? Anyways, the black kind of, oh no, I meant to say what it is. So, let me start that again. Fabric was, so I'm actually kind of impressed. Didn't make too many mistakes as I look at a little like random loop that's sticking out there on the shoulder. Sweater by Kuko Vakika. Did I get it right first time that time? I haven't even done all my notes on this. Oh my god, someone's yelling outside. I cannot speak today.